Hi, I'm Robert Woodcock, and I'm here to tell you about the Earth Analytics Interoperability Lab, a new initiative within WGISS, first proposed back in WGISS 49, that was intended to help with interoperability issues that were emergent across a number of CEOS projects. So why do we need an interoperability lab, and why was it proposed in the first place? Effectively, a significant number of CEOS activities have been engaged in the ARD, the analysis ready data, and future data architectures activities, and they're all looking at integrated Earth observation data analysis, proving to be a challenge, and they're asking lots of questions around discovery and access for ARD, terminology for ARD, and cloud data formats and things like that. Many are looking for advice and or implementations, and they've been contacting both WGISS and the CEOS Systems Engineering Office, headed up by Brian Kilo, asking for assistance. And what we found in talking to them is that most of those issues are related to how do you actually validate interoperability across CEOS organizations? How do you actually get it to evolve and make it work? So we proposed the lab back at WGISS 40. There are a number of WGISS interoperability initiatives. The lab is just one of them. And it's important to note that because interoperability is such a complex topic across both discovery and access and computing and so forth, that we have several threads to interoperability across WGISS. This is just one of them, and you'll hear about the other ones that are listed on this slide through other speakers later in the week. The first lab has been deployed, and we have this hosted by the CSIRO, my home organization. It's jointly operated by WGISS and SEO to provide examples of FDA components in active use. It provides shared candidate ARD storage. I say candidate because there aren't any official ARDs out there just at the moment. They're all being trialed and tested, worked on. It connects to existing and emergent services for discoverability and access. So we can connect to, for example, CEOS OpenSearch, and through to ordering systems like those made available by ESPA for the WGISS, and through the Copernicus Hub for the Sentinel series of satellites from ESA, and of course other agencies. And it provides analytical tools and collaboration capabilities using Jupyter notebooks. So you can log into the system, perform an analysis using the ARD data that you've discovered, and visualize the results. We're hoping to use this environment to jointly develop interoperability experiments, ones where we can actually test that the services that we're providing, the APIs that are being provided, the different data cube computing platforms are all able to work together effectively. Now, what's been interesting is since WGISS 49, we floated the proposal first with WGISS and then took it to a number of the other working groups and CEOS projects that are running across CEOS. What we've had is much stronger interest than we expected. We've had CEOS Coast, Working Group CalVal with a digital elevation model project that one of their crews involved with, Working Group Disasters and the Flood Pilot, a CEOS rice monitoring community has also shown interest. There's been a few others, WGCAPD, for example, around the use of it for training purposes and so forth. Now, this has been a little overwhelming for Brian and I. It was originally intended to be an experiment, and now we've got a lot stronger interest than we expected. So we're scrambling a little bit to keep up with the interest and get the system established. Some of the features you can see, I mentioned Jupyter Labs previously. This is important for exploratory data analytics, and you can see here a visualization of quite a sizable chunk of data actually, which is running on a distributed cluster behind the system. And you can see the NDVI results from a calculation run running over a Sentinel-2 data over Tasmania. We've got a WGISS survey actually underway for the use of Jupyter in CEOS agencies, and that's probably closed by the time you see this video, but it's running just at the moment. And that we're hoping to use to help inform us how we should demonstrate the use of Jupyter notebooks effectively, and use the Interoperability Lab to propagate that knowledge to others. In addition, the lab supports scalable cloud computing. This is quite important. Cloud computing has become one of the big drivers in the last few years across initiatives in CEOS, and the flexibility and computational capabilities available in the cloud are quite significant, but it is different. I mean, the way you access data is different. The way you perform distributed computation is slightly different. And so it is a little bit more challenging. So in this environment, we have DAS distributed computing available for processing arrays. It's an excellent environment. It works with Xarray, which is in the Open Data Cube, which is the back of the Interoperability Lab. But we also have Argo workflows, which is an orchestration framework for larger workflows that we run in the system. We actually run our data pipelines, for example, for processing and gathering together data from other organizations in an automated way through Argo workflows. Together, those two things scale both the analytics and the ability to perform job control across the Interoperability Lab. We also have the capacity to host web portals of various kinds and flavors. This one's here is from the CSIRO's Data61 TerraCube prototype. Currently, it's connected to a web map service, which is connected to the Open Data Cube data source beneath it, running in the Interoperability Lab. And you can access that service from other things other than web portals. You could do it from WGISS or a GIS package that supports web mapping services. And yeah, so that's the kind of prototype environment we've got available. In addition, behind the scenes, we have a data architecture and data pipelines, which accommodates both existing CEOS agency mechanisms for data discovery and download using either directly to the agency through, here I've got Esper and Copernicus showing, or it can actually be done through CEOS OpenSearch as well, when granules are published through CEOS OpenSearch. And we also have the ability to go directly to the cloud. And this is quite important because that's an emergent area for a number of CEOS agencies. We would like to be able to see more CEOS agency data in the cloud that we can just use directly in place without actually having to make a copy or download any. Behind the scenes, for those of you a little bit more technically interested, and there was a talk on this at a previous WGISS, take a look at that. The back end is powered by the Earth Analytics Science and Innovation Hub, which is a Kubernetes-based system developed by the CSIRO and powered by the Open Data Cube itself. And in that, we have all the normal services that you require, plus monitoring capabilities. And we use Kubernetes for all the orchestration, scaling, and robustness features and ensuring everything's up. Underneath that, we have the whole system hosted on AWS, where we make use of their compute and database services. We could also deploy potentially to other clouds if needed down the track, but for the moment, this is the environment we have the lab sitting in. The other thing we're looking at is cloud data formats. What's the best practice associated with them? We're getting a lot of queries about how to best store data in the cloud. We have several options available to us at this stage. COGS, Cloud Optimized GeoChifs, is one. And the WGISS, for example, Collection 2 for Landsat is expected to be in COGS format on Amazon, and the Interoperability Lab will be able to use any of that data directly. In addition, we've also looked at NetCDF in the cloud. That has an interim API, which does a translation from the object storage through to a standard NetCDF approach. We can make that available through the Interoperability Lab. And the CSIRO has been working on a ZAR-based driver for the Open Data Cube, and we hope to be releasing that soon. And we'll make that available again in the Interoperability Lab for experiments in the use of ZAR data in the back end. Once we have all of these running, I'm expecting we'll run some experiments to find out what the performance characteristics are like and use that to help develop a best practice system for the cloud. In addition, the interest group on discovery and access is working on this data discovery updates for CEOS data when it's sitting in the cloud. You can see here from this little screenshot from the Amazon Web Services public data website that there are Landsat 8 and Sentinel data already available, but neither of those are actually managed by WGISS and ESA, respectively. They're actually managed by Planet and Synergize. So there are questions around provenance. We also have to be very careful with information about where the region is for that data. So if you were to do an analysis on these two data sets directly, you would have one of them transporting a hell of a lot of data to the location of your compute. Regardless of which region you put it in, one of them or the other one is going to transport. And that has costs associated with it. The other thing we need to look at is things like request to pays. We need to communicate this type of information through discovery, because ultimately the discovery systems in CEOS need to be able to tell people, where is the data? What's it going to cost me to get hold of it? What's the provenance of that data? and where do I need to run my compute in order to be able to use that data in the most effective way. And so we're looking at how we can update in WGISS the discovery systems to help support these types of issues. In the future, we're hoping that additional nodes will become available for the Interoperability Hub. It's not really interoperability when there is only one piece of technology in use. And that's particularly true for the Earth Analytics side of things. We've currently only got the Open Data Cube in the lab ecosystem. ESA have their own Data Cube flavor, and it would be fantastic. And you can see here from this diagram, they have very similar architectures, the Open Data Cube on the left and the ESA Data Cube on the right. But the devil's in the detail. What we really need to know is how do we get an algorithm that's running on one system to run on another system portably, particularly if we're moving from data or compute styles between systems. So the question of interoperability around the analytics is actually quite important. And we're hoping that additional nodes will pop up within the lab and it'll ultimately become a multi-node system. And certainly there's been some initial interest from ESA as we've started to develop this concept. For the roadmap ahead, WGISS and SEO have actually deployed the lab. We haven't made it generally available yet because we're still gathering some information on the requirements and also want to make sure we have our support and operations systems in place for you. Notably, the other working groups and projects in CEOS, like CEOS Coast and WG Disasters, are currently conducting an inventory of their data and analytics requirements. And through that, we're going to develop the joint interoperability experiments and the capabilities needed by those projects so that we can host them within the lab and help them to explore those concepts and ideas that they're trying to develop further. After that, we're also hoping to demonstrate and make available a cookbook of Jupyter Notebook examples that show how to make use of the interoperable services and what the best practice actually looks like and feels like. And also just to communicate some of the new technology. Let's face it, some of the cloud data formats and cloud analytics capabilities are in fact quite new for many CEOS agencies. So it may benefit them to understand and have a place to play where they can actually learn about these things and then take that back to their organization and improve the way in which they're making their data discovery work or their analytics be performed. So that's the Interoperability Lab, and I hope you have enjoyed the rest of WGISS 50.